move on to St James's. I think the question here is, in St James's, how can we protect private members' clubs, which are sui generis uses? Just for those who don't understand, under the use classes order, most activities that you have, most land use activities fall into the use classes order. There's things like A uses, A1 is shops, A3 is restaurants and cafes, C3 is your own home, but sui generis means it doesn't fall within any use, and that one of the important points about sui generis is that they each get considered on their own merit, so there's no interchanging. For example, one shop could get turned from a shoe shop to a bookshop to another type of shop. For sui generis uses, they don't allow those sorts of changes within sui generis uses, so they're looked at on their own merits. The second point is about specialist shops. Again, we come back to the point that the councillor raised earlier, which is that they all fall within A1 use. It can be quite difficult to protect specialist shops if they want to change into a next that falls within the same use classes order. And the third point is about art galleries, which is a D use class. So has anyone got any suggestions about how we can go about protecting these particular uses that have been identified as being particularly important within St James's?
Well, I'm glad we're asking how we can protect them, not should we protect them, because obviously the whole area, I mean, St James's, as I'm sure most people sitting here will agree, is one of the jewels in the crown of the city, and so I'm glad you're asking how we can do it, not should we, because we must.
Right.
So suggestions from...
Yes, on behalf of the Crown Estate, I think your description of the various uses sort of sums up the problem, which is that I'm not sure that there is clarity as to what the designation of St James is, which is clearly distinctive and unique and has a whole range of uses. What exactly is the intention behind the SPA designation? And I think if there is going to be a special policy area that encompasses the entirety of what is clearly St James's, then it needs to be balanced by an acknowledgement that this is part of the core CAZ.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other suggestions for the protection of those uses within St James's? I mean, obviously it's far easier to pick out the private members' clubs and the art galleries than it is perhaps the specialist shop retail offer there. But
I think it's easier with this area to say what things we don't want, and things we do.
Yeah, perhaps there's any comment from the floor about particular uses that we wouldn't want to see. I mean, again, we take Keith's point that it is part of the wider CAS. It is part of core CAS. Okay.
Well, I mean, what has been the worry is St James's? I mean, it's so close to Leicester Square and the entertainment district. I mean, it's essential that a barrier is drawn somehow to stop what is called the kind of the Leicester Square creep into that area. So we've done it by having particular licensing policies, etc. I hope those will continue. Okay. But
so perhaps a particular approach that constrains entertainment uses within St James's. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Were there any other suggestions against that? And should new development in the vicinity make a contribution towards public realm improvements in St James's? Any suggestions on that?
I think absolutely. I think the public realm, there are some very good ideas from the St James's Conservation Trust and from the City Council in terms of what we could be doing, and I think parts of the city in terms of public realm need improving, and St James's is one area, and I happen to think that and I was convinced of this by others, that the public realm, what we do as a local authority, as a planning authority to influence what the public realm looks like, will have a massive effect upon what people feel they can develop and how the character of an area can be enhanced. And St James's is one area where I personally would like to see that carried forward, for us to be far more rigorous about what we want in the public area.
Okay, thank you. Right, are there any last comments on special policy areas that anybody wants to raise? Over the way, we'll move on to... I did see
that somewhere in the general thrust, Covent Garden has been put forward as a special policy area, and I'd just like to say I would support, as the local ward council, I would support that.
think that's something that came through from the core strategy consultation, but we haven't identified it as a special policy area. It does fall within the West End special retail policy area, so there's a slight distinction there. But
well, it will be looked at to alert as a possibility.